Greetings, Psychonauts. Let me tell you about Steve Wozniak, the esteemed American inventor behind the design of the original Apple computer and pioneer of the personal computer revolution. Accomplished a great many things. He can do a lot, but there is one simple thing that he can't do, which the average primate can. He can't recognize himself in the mirror. Steve Wozniak has a form of prosopagnosia, also known as face blindness, which impairs a person's ability to perceive or recognize faces. As I'm sure Irene has drilled into you by now, brain function is localized in various regions. Steve Wozniak can identify the various objects on his desk, but he cannot recognize a picture of his former partner, the late Steve Jobs. This is because the specific structure in his brain which is supposed to be responsible for facial recognition is malfunctioning. His sense of vision is completely intact. He can presumably see everything that most humans would be able to see, but his deficiency is with his perception. This is just one excellent example by which sensation and perception are connected yet different psychological processes. Sensation is the bottom-up process by which our senses, like hearing, vision, smell, and touch, receive and relay outside stimuli. Perception is the multi-level process by which our brains organize and interpret that information. Sensation is considered a bottom-up process because it involves the processing of sensory information as it is being received from the environment. This raw information is composed of small, individual fragments and is considered a lower tier of awareness, whereas cognition is considered a higher tier of awareness. For example, if I present a random picture, your eyes detect the features, your brain pieces it together. Your retina will activate in a way that will transmit the object to your brain. Along the way, you may understand that the picture is of a sole object by recognizing its boundaries. You might recognize that it is long. You would simultaneously receive and identify a multitude of features such as branch points or the colors, brown and green. You process the picture and construct the cognition that the image is of something you associate to be a tree. Bottom up refers to the way the identification of the tree is built up from the smaller pieces of sensory information. The identification of the tree itself is a form of perception, which can be driven by both sensory input as well as cognition. This cognitive-driven perception is known as top-down processing because it involves the use of broader concepts to perceive a more specific object. This is basically the use of context to make it easier to process new information. For example, examine this shape. Seen alone, your brain is likely to engage in bottom-up processing. You will pick apart features such as the presence of thick vertical lines or 3 thin horizontal lines. There is no context to give it a specific meaning, so there is no top-down processing involved. Now, let's provide some context. Surrounded by sequential letters, your brain expects the shape to be a letter and to complete the sequence. In that context, you perceive the lines to form the shape of the letter B. Surrounded by numbers, the same shape now looks like the number 13. When given a context, your perception is driven by your cognitive expectations. Now you have top-down processing to add to your bottom-up processing for completing your perception of the shape. With only a couple of weeks left in the semester, it's not hard to imagine that there are a lot of exams in the horizon. Well, what if I told you that understanding of top-down and bottom-up processing could help you improve your next exam grade? As you may have heard, you can improve a lot by looking at your old exams. If you tend to misread questions, miss key words, or overlook part of a figure, then you may be prone to overusing top-down processing. Some strategies to overcome this problem involve an emphasis on bottom-up processing to compensate. For example, you could read slowly and deliberately the entirety of the questions and all answers. Underline key terms, including concept terms or words such as not or accept. Double check your answer by rereading it along with your question. If you tend to find yourself studying for an exam, but blanking on material when you actually come to answering the questions, then you may benefit from enforcing your top-down processing. For example, you could underline key terms in the question and take the time to write everything you remember about that word. Read your list and eliminate answers which are inconsistent with what you know. Doing this can give you more confidence in what you actually do know, potentially avoiding the unfortunate occurrence of convincing yourself of false information based on incorrect multiple choice answers. Although these strategies are tailored for multiple choice exams, you can use your knowledge of top-down and bottom-up processing to design your own strategies to fit every kind of exam. Hopefully this was helpful, and you can grab those extra points. Keep learning and stay curious.